Welcome, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us online today. I see a lot of you guys are joining. We had over 100 registrations, and I see already 20 people. Okay, keep going, keep going. We're just on time starting. We'd like to hear where you're joining us from. So put in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube or on Twitter, wherever you're joining us from, where you are joining us from. Where in the world are you? Let's see if it's evening as here in Amsterdam, or is it still during the day if you're joining us from America. Let us know. We're so curious where you're all joining us from. I see comments are coming in. That is great. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody, for taking the time to learn something about salary negotiation, a topic that is important for everybody, no matter what industry you're working at. I see, yes, Mona Lisa from Cape Town. Hello, good to see you. So yeah, we have Steph from OfferZen today with us, and OfferZen's headquarters is in South Africa. So I expect a lot of friends from there joining us today. Amazing. Okay, great. Wow. We have Emma from Barcelona, Cape Town, Vanessa from rainy Amsterdam. Yes, indeed, I know. That is great. Okay, so this webinar is really interactive. We have lots of time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. So keep your questions coming in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll cover that after the presentation. So before we get started, I want to quickly introduce myself and our team and organization. We are SheSharp, a non-for-profit organization based in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. And we are focused on fostering diversity and inclusion within STEM and entrepreneurship. We have monthly events, now mostly online, but now we're starting to branch out a little bit beyond this as well. So for example, this year, we have launched our Mentorship Program, which is going really well. So stay tuned for our next round next year. And aside from this, we also launched our online community on Slack. So if you're interested in joining us on Slack, head over to shesharp.co/Slack. And yeah, just to quickly introduce myself and the team, I'm one of the co-founders of SheSharp. And also I'm in charge of the events, and I'll be your moderator for today's talk. I'm joined today by my team, who will wave as I introduce them. So firstly, we have Amanda, who is our, let me see where Amanda is. There she is. Hello, Amanda, who's our Director of Communications. She's the face behind all our great social media. Follow us on SheSharpNL to take part in the online conversation. We also have Sarah, our Director of Tech. So Sarah is responsible for the website and all our technical aspects. She's currently moderating everything behind the scenes, triple checking that all our broadcasts on all the platforms that we are live streaming to right now are working. Then also we have Emily. Emily is our Director of Partnerships, who's also helping with some behind the scenes logistics today. Additionally, we are joined by Ada. Ada is our internal collaborator for events, and there she is. And our new teammates, welcome to Christina, who's in charge of operations, and Gabby, who's supporting us in growing our community and doing some communications. Welcome, everybody. And now for our speaker of the hour, Stephanie Tutter. Steph is a qualified psychometrist working as a tech talent advisor for OfferZen. Stephanie has learned a lot about job search process, both from the perspective of the employer, but also from the employee side. Working with clients on a daily basis who are embarking on their job search process has given her insights into a variety of different scenarios, a deeper understanding of human motivation, and the nuances that are encountered during these processes. So everybody, feel free to comment or add any questions to the Facebook or YouTube feed throughout this talk. And at the end, we'll do a live question and answer with Steph. Okay, now over to you, Steph, to kick things off.
Thanks, Sina. Evening, everyone, or afternoon, wherever you might be in the world. So as Sina mentioned, my name is Stephanie Tutter, and I'm a talent advisor at OfferZen, and I have been since July 2018. For those of you who might not know, OfferZen is an online marketplace, which basically means that how the platform works is that if you're looking for a job in the tech community, what you would do is you would create an OfferZen profile. This is then reviewed against the demand that we have on our platform, so the companies who are hiring. And if you get the go-ahead from that, you'd be assigned a talent advisor, so like me. And you and your talent advisor, you fine-tune your profile, you get it visible on the platform. And then for a period of 4 weeks, your profile is visible on the platform. Companies can reach out to you, and then you choose whether or not you want to interview with them. And from there, you then follow the company's interview process. And as a talent advisor, I basically help you throughout the whole process. So as a talent advisor, we help candidates through their whole job search journey, be this from like your profile building to finding out more about what you're looking for, interview assistance, and of course, helping with negotiating. So a bit about my background. As Sina mentioned, I'm a qualified psychometrist in South Africa, and I also have my honors in psychology from the Stellenbosch University. I've been living actually in France for the last 11 months, and some context, salary negotiation is something that I speak about with my clients, my candidates on a daily basis. And when it comes to like selecting a salary, thinking about salary, and really all that goes into that, and also being able to negotiate a salary with a potential employer or even just your current employer. So my experience at OfferZen has really taught me a lot about what works and what doesn't. And I'd really love to be able to share a bit of those insights with you this evening. But before we dive into things, please feel free to take out your phones, or if you're on your laptop or computer, go to this link. And if you don't mind, as OfferZen, we're currently doing a State of the Software Developer Nation survey. So if you can, go ahead, fill it in. If you do miss it, the code at this point, I will share it again at the end of the presentation. And just as a soft reminder, the survey does close next week. So another thing you can go and claim is some swag. In South Africa at the moment, OfferZen is quite famous for our swag. So hopefully we can spread the love to those of you in Amsterdam, and we'll see if we can get it further than that as well. But before we dive into things, I'd love to actually give you a bit of context around my presentation. So how to negotiate your salary and what does this all mean? So the purpose of this chat is really just to share some insights and advice around salary negotiation. So you might ask, why should we even chat about this? Well, it's something that affects us all at one point or another, be that when we're considering an offer or even just addressing your salary with your current employer. And today, I really want to be able to equip you to have that conversation. And hopefully my experience is able to help in this regard. So interestingly enough, according to research, women are less likely than men to negotiate their salary offers. So for one instance, a study of graduating MBA students found that half of the men negotiated their job offers, whereas only 1/8 of the women did. So this is something I see time and again that happens. I mean, just for some personal a scenario to bring here is when I received my offer to join OfferZen, I didn't think twice about negotiating my salary. When my brother received his offer to join the company that he was joining, he negotiated. Like, he didn't think twice about not negotiating. So just a personal anecdote to that. So as I mentioned, OfferZen is an online job marketplace, and our mission really is to help every person in the tech community unlock their potential. So to be able to do this, we believe that we need to help people be able to make meaningful connections in a community where sharing and learning is encouraged. So I'm here this evening really hoping to share some of my learnings that I've gained over the last 2.5 years. So to get us started, let's paint a picture. You've just gone through the job search and you received an offer, or better yet, you're having the salary discussion around what you're looking for in terms of salary. So with this picture in mind, I'm going to be covering a few points to hopefully make salary negotiation no longer feel so daunting, but rather something that is practical and achievable. So firstly, when would you consider to have an offer negotiation? What factors would you consider to negotiate? What is a kind of good mindset to have when negotiating? what does a successful negotiation look like in the end, and then just some final takeaway points. So what does this look like in practice? Well, let's dive into it. So when would you consider to have a negotiation? If you think of it, the term salary negotiation gets thrown around quite a lot, but what are actually the practical aspects of when you would actually have this? So a few potential scenarios could be you're considering entering the job market. So in this regard, it's always a good idea to have thought through what would be your ideal salary amount and why you decided on that. This really helps create alignment from the get-go. So does it fit in with the company's budget for the role? Are benefits important to you or not? What if a company doesn't have additional benefits? Another scenario, you've got an offer, but you're not 100% happy with it. So you want to negotiate it. Bear in mind, if you are actually happy with the offer you have, don't just negotiate for negotiation's sake. There should always be a clear motivation as to why you're negotiating, and just because you can be a slippery slope. Another scenario is you're up for salary review with your current employer, and that's going to be happening soon, and you want to be able to motivate for the salary you're hoping for, and thus you need to start thinking about that conversation that you'll be having with your team lead or your manager. Or another scenario is you're just not happy with the current salary that you're earning and you want to negotiate it for a different package, and you want to be able to chat to your team lead manager around your concerns about this. So in the end, these aren't the only scenarios that are there. There are and definitely could be others, but these are the most 4 common scenarios that I've encountered in my time at OfferZen. So as a start, there are also some common scenarios that I've seen that like when negotiations take place. So one could be you're underpaid, but you're looking for a market-related salary, be this at your current employer or at a new company. 2, you're earning a market-related salary, but you're looking at your like annual increase. 3, you're pivoting roles. So be that like, say, for example, from a business analyst to a full stack developer or however that might be. And then 4, you're currently being overpaid by market standards, or you have amazing benefits, but you're just looking for something new, something different. So let's try and make this even more practical. I'm going to give you 2 examples. So one where negotiations worked and one where they didn't. So the scenarios that I'm giving, the anecdote in the beginning is they are extreme scenarios. So another fact to consider is salary negotiations and negotiations in general are quite nuanced. So there's a lot more than just what I'll be mentioning, but hopefully it highlights some key scenarios and factors to consider. So say, for example, we have Sarah, and Sarah has been interviewing with company X. They really loved interviewing with her and have decided to make her an offer. However, when Sarah opens or reads the offer letter, she's not happy with what she got because she was expecting something differently. So what happened is company X took into consideration what she was currently earning, and that impacted the final offer on hand. So what Sarah does is she expresses her excitement for the offer, asks to have a call to chat through it. As there's a few factors she wants to cover. She gets the hiring manager on a call, asks the few questions she had for some clarity around like leave days, salary review, you name it. She then also goes ahead and asks if there's any room to negotiate or for the salary to be revised. And she gives context as to why. So she lists her current earning, the market data around salaries for her given experience, the breakdown of the current package she's on, the direction she's wanting to take her career in, and the value she believes she can add, and also how she performed in the interview process. So after the talk with the hiring manager, they reach a compromise. They would increase her salary on offer to slightly less than what she was asking for, as they do believe she's a strong candidate. However, what they'll do is at the 3-month mark of her probation, if she has satisfactory performance, her salary gets reviewed, and then she'll get the package she was actually looking for. So in the end, it's a win-win for them both. So why did this work? She was upfront, she was honest, and she was really good at her communication. She applied best practices and also reassured the company that she was indeed really keen on them, even if she did want to negotiate a bit. She also opted for a call rather than an email to talk about it further. And in the end, Sarah was willing to reach a compromise to make sure that it worked for her and Company X. But on the other hand, we now have Maria. And I'm very sorry if anyone here is called Sarah or Maria, but just names are used. And Maria has also interviewed with Company X. They also really loved her and decide to make her an offer. But when Maria reads the email, the salary package on offer is also not what she was expecting, because she currently gets amazing benefits. So she gets shares, she gets the 13th check, medical contributions, but unfortunately, Company X doesn't have these contributions. So although Maria is excited about the offer, she wants more information. And unfortunately, what she does is she sends a very lengthy, wordy email and wants clarity on all the factors like the salary, the leave days, the travel opportunities, working hours, growth, all of that. But the way she phrases it is quite demanding, and nor does she express her interest or thanks for receiving the offer. So the initial impression from the hiring manager or the company is, from seeing that amount of text, is that she's actually not that keen and rather is finding fault in a number of factors or things that she's unhappy with. So Maria wants to negotiate the salary amount and benefits, but instead of asking it in a way that is willing to reach a compromise, it came across as a set of demands and that she wasn't actually willing to reach a middle point. So even though she didn't mean that, her wording and expression of it gave that impression. So this is unfortunately perceived quite negatively by Company X, and in light of this, they aren't able to offer her a similar package, so they accept it as a no to their offer. So why didn't this work? So Maria was perhaps quite abrasive in her correspondence with them, and it wasn't really a negotiation, but rather those set of demands. And although this wasn't her intention, it is how it was perceived. And perception can be powerful, especially at this point in the process. So Maria was willing to compromise on all the benefits, as that wasn't her motivator in the job search. But when it came down to it, the way she communicated it made it seem that a lack of benefits or a similar salary structure would be a deal breaker for her. And although emails can work, a very lengthy one can give the wrong impression. So rather opting for a call would have conveyed her meaning, her excitement, and her genuine interest in the opportunity that perhaps the email would have lacked. So as I mentioned in the beginning, these are two very extreme examples, and there's a lot more that goes into the negotiation process than just this. Also, there are different degrees of these kind of situations that can take place, but ensuring that you stick to best practices will help you avoid the situation from spiraling downhill. So with that in mind, a few things to remember when thinking about salary negotiation. It is very much a conversation. So it's with another human being who probably also at one point in their life also had to go through a similar conversation. And the key word here is salary negotiation is negotiation. So you be willing to reach a compromise so that the final result will work for you and the other party involved in the discussion. And don't forget, there is always an opportunity to have a negotiation conversation. There is no rule or best practice that says it's bad to negotiate. It's all about how and why you do it that counts. So hopefully you've got a better idea of when are some key times to have the conversation around salary. But the next step to consider would be what factors are actually the ones that you are considering. So when it comes to salary negotiation, there are a lot of factors you can consider, and I probably won't even be able to cover them all. But initially, one would think it's limited to monetary value, but there's actually a whole lot of other factors that come into play. So as an overview, when trying to evaluate the salary you're looking for going forward, make use of resources like Glassdoor or PayScale or PayLab, or even OfferZen salary data can also help. So before you even have an offer, you should have a clear picture in mind of what you'd like and what you believe is realistic in terms of a salary package going forward. The reason I use the term realistic is because we'd all love 1,000 euros, 100,000 euros a month. However, the likelihood of this is slim. Also, it's important to consider the value you can add to the company. So for your salary, consider your cost to company, your overall package as well in terms of like the net salary. So what you get into your bank account are also factors to consider. From there, it's then a good idea to understand how the offer is structured. So that's the cost to company, the gross salary, the net salary, as well as what benefits are included and which are compulsory. What's your social security contributions look like? And if this company is willing to contribute to it, if there's a 13th check, and if that's included in the cost to company package, how many leave days do you get? Is it the minimum 20 as in the Netherlands or like the minimum 15 in South Africa? Or do you get more? Do you get free lunch? Are there paid learning opportunities? You name it. Remember, it's really not just your salary that you can negotiate. So a good way to start going about negotiation is essentially to look at the breakdown of the offer. So in this, always feel free to ask for a mock pay slip, a dummy pay slip. This will be able to show you the monetary breakdown of the offer in terms of like base salary, contributions, tax deductions, and then your final net salary. So what you can then do is compare it to what is important to you in a package going forward. So if the mock payslip doesn't provide you with enough information, feel free to ask the person you're interviewing with, and also even for a draft contract to read through to look at the finer details. So another factor to consider is your growth trajectory. So where do you see yourself within the company in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years, and how does this align with your vision for your career, your role, and the journey at the company? Another factor to consider is the growth of the company. So, for example, if they are a startup, it might be worthwhile to consider if equity or profit share is on the table. This can also be a good factor to consider as an additional benefit or perk in the package, and it usually wouldn't be included in the cost to company package. Factors such as your 13th check, performance bonuses, leave days, remote working, office equipment, lunches are also things that you can consider and that can be negotiated. So when thinking of your salary, it's also important to consider what you're currently earning. So as much as this shouldn't be the sole factor, it is definitely something that will come into play. Most companies in the Netherlands are comfortable to give a 5% increase in annual salary. However, this can be different for internal reviews. So if you're looking for an increase above that in terms of salary, you would need to have a strong motivation to carry to your current manager or the person you're interviewing with, as they would likely need to be able to motivate this to HR or the executive team or whoever it might be. Additionally, remember that oftentimes your salary is a reflection to an extent of the value you're able to bring to the company. So if you're able to have data points that show and support the value you bring to the table, this will help your conversation a lot, such as the performance at work, and be sure to be very thorough in this account of, say, the last 6 to 12 months, or how well you did in the interview process, be that from their feedback, or usually if it's a bit more technical, your technical assessment or task. And the motivation is linked to the why of the salary you're asking for. So be clear and intentional about that. So now that we've looked at the breakdown of salary and all the factors one would consider, we'll look a bit at the mindset you should adopt when considering having a negotiation. To make this simpler, here are a few practical pointers for our mindset that we can use when we negotiate. So firstly, you want to be able to convey to the person you're negotiating with why, from their perspective, it makes sense that you're negotiating. So have this clear in mind as it will come up. Second, be prepared and set a time to have the conversation. It should be planned, not a spontaneous, oh, by the way, kind of conversation. This shows that you're taking the conversation and the situation seriously. 3, you want to be able to signal to them that you really care about the company, organizational relationships, and your excitement to join them, continue working with them, growing in the role you're already in, and that it's not only down to the euros in the sense. A nice strategy to actually use is the I-we strategy. So watch your wording, careful of only using I the whole time, and make sure to really highlight both sides of the coin as such. And this links quite closely to conveying to the person that you understand their perspective of the situation as well and have factored that in. So these are just some guidelines of how to think about this all, and I hope that they'll be able to provide you with a bit of a mental framework to work from. Now you're probably thinking, but what does a successful negotiation even look like in the end? So, as hard as it might be, a successful negotiation doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting everything that you wanted, but rather it's a compromise between you and the person you're negotiating with, and ensuring that it's a compromise rather than you bending or submitting to the decision at hand. Your voice really does matter, and this is a key area where you should feel free to voice it. Having that mindset that you are indeed willing to negotiate rather than enter the discussion with a list of demands will set you up well for the discussion and those going forward. And negotiating is a skill. It takes time and practice, so it is possible that it doesn't go that smoothly, but that's where learning comes from. It also takes place at every stage, and you learn more and more as you do it. If you haven't yet, the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss and Talraz is a great resource to read regarding this. It basically focuses on FBI hostage negotiation situations, so it also serves as an interesting read. From my experience, though, really, the best approach when considering a negotiation is playing open cards. So be clear about what you'd like, but also where you're willing to compromise to reach a decision that would work for you both. For me, the way in which a company and a potential employee handles a negotiation like this also speaks volumes. So keep this in mind, approaching the conversation in an open and professional manner every step of the way, as you really want to avoid burning any bridges. And like Moya Rose would say, to bring it home, this evening or this afternoon, wherever you might be, I really just wanted to convey that you have the power, and I even want to say as far as like you have the responsibility to have these conversations, because in the end, that is what they are, conversations. Some highlights of the conversation that I'd like you to take away is there's always an opportunity to negotiate. I hope you're feeling a bit more confident to do so. Go in prepared and with clear motivations of what it is you're hoping to achieve from the discussion and why. Salary is not just limited to the money you'd get at the end of the month. There are a lot of other factors to consider in an overall package. Be willing to compromise and play open cards in communicating so that the person you're speaking with will perceive what you're saying as legitimate as well as mutually beneficial for them and the company. And feel free to practice. Use a friend, a family member, and practice having these kinds of conversations because, as we all know, practice makes perfect. So just as a reminder, as I wrap up, this survey closes next week. So if you have a chance to please do that. And then also just, if you haven't yet, to claim your swag. All right. Thanks. That's it from me. Back to you, Sina.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. There I am. Thanks so much, Steph. I think that was super, super valuable. I love all your tips and the two case studies as well. I know that Sarah, my colleague, was like, "Oh, is she talking about me?" Good that you clarified. No, it was great. So I'm looking at all the comments that are coming in here, and there are so many. So let me just start with a comment. For example, from Sarah, she's saying, "I absolutely agree with the importance of bringing data points into the conversation." So that was one of the highlights for her, I think. And also one of my key takeaways is like communication is so important. And also you mentioned don't email, but have a call with your boss or have a face-to-face meeting if possible. I think that really does make the difference.
I will give it though that this year has made it hard for face-to-face conversations, and video is a bit more tricky, but I really would still opt for like a vocal conversation than text.
Exactly. Yeah. No. And also you mentioned, I think that was resonating with me. It's important to show what value do you bring to the company, and show this to the company, and then maybe that you have success with your negotiation. So that was indeed a very good comment. Let me see for any other comments or questions. Well, there was a question right at the beginning from Amanda. Let me read out. So she's saying, I would love to learn a bit more about how can you benchmark your salary against other people in your industry? Like, so do you have any tips or tools for how to achieve this?
That's very cool. Very good question. So my advice is probably going to be a bit more related to those in the tech industry, just as that is where my domain knowledge does lie. But for example, factors you could look at if, say, you're a developer, what tech are you working with specifically? How many years of experience do you have in that specific tech? Is it with the latest versions of the tech? Do you have experience with the frameworks or the libraries of it? And then also things in that could be, what is your variety of exposure? So are you only a front-end dev? Are you also a back-end? Are you a full stack? Do you have exposure to cloud technologies? So building up where your experience lies. And then data points that you can look at in that and how to compare is looking at the companies as well. So if you're looking at a small startup company, they might not have a similar budget than, say, a very reputable, large, established corporate company would have. So making sure when you're referencing against friends or people in the market that it's in a same industry. So say you're in financial services and it's in a similar size company, because then usually your budgets that the roles would be are on like a similar playing field. So those would be some of the kind of things I would say that you can highlight, but it's years of experience, the actual like tech experience and tools that you are familiar with and confident in, the industry you work in, and company size and kind of reputation and reputability in their financial situation.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Hope that helps, Amanda.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, thanks a lot. And another question came in from Christina. Do you have any examples of an effective I-we strategy?
Very cool.
Some concrete examples.
100%. So yeah, that's a good one. I think it would depend on the scenario. But for example, the I-we would be, if I work my 8 to 5 hours, but I meet my KPIs at the end of every month, and you're setting me even stretch goals, not just, that, then this is the kind of value I believe I can bring to this company. So then the company can see, okay, this is what you're bringing in the I perspective, and the we perspective is like, what are they gaining in that as well as a company and an organization? So that's one kind of example I would probably think of. If you do want more, Christina, you're also welcome to message me on like LinkedIn and we can chat further. But that would be kind of something that's always thinking of the two sides of the coin. Like, what are you contributing, and what can they also see that to be as a mutually beneficial kind of contribution?
Yeah, very good point. I agree. Then Tiffany and Helena, they have similar comments or a question. So how do you reply to the mention of unsure times, especially now during COVID?
It's good. Yeah, so that is a tough one, and it's definitely, that's been really relevant over the last, I want to say 8-9 months, even if not longer than that. Something I would say from that is finding out when a company mentions that, what is their timeline in that kind of situation? So if they're saying unsure times, okay, but after 6 months, even if COVID's still around, can we reevaluate? Is it indefinite now? And then also finding out, and this is where it comes back to considering the company in this situation, what has been the financial effect of COVID on the company? So if the company is perhaps just using it as an excuse, then it could be a different conversation. But if really the company has been financially strained, then figuring out a timeline. So, okay, well, even if the company is still in this position at the 3-month mark, we have this conversation regardless of where it stands. So I would say like having that timeline conversation, and also being considerate of what the impact has financially been on the company, and if it's a valid reason or not.
Yeah, but you would say like, still we should ask for a raise, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like kind of the thought I have around that is, the worst they can say is no. which is basically, if you don't ask, it's a definite no, but you could maybe still have your, get a yes if you do ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, good point. And then, so if we go back to the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned like, how should I address asking for a raise? So maybe you can just repeat again some tips on how should I ask for a meeting for the raise?
Okay. Yeah. So in that, you want to treat it as professionally and as seriously as possible. So things I would say there is gauging what is your relationship with your team lead or your manager. So that has a big impact. If you guys perhaps have a more friendly, familiar relationship, it could impact it. Or if it's an ongoing conversation that you've already been having, then just continuing that conversation. But the way I would kind of say it is, book a slot in their calendar, find a slot that they're available, be it 30 minutes, set a small agenda point that, you can keep it broad, just be like growth discussion or career progression, anything like that. You don't have to give a lot of information perhaps in setting up the meeting. But I would say formalize it in that way and then have the conversation. You can have agenda points that you want to discuss. So it could be around, you're unhappy with what you're currently earning and why. Then it's kind of coming back to those data points of like, what have you done in the last 6 to 12 months in the company that they can recognize, giving you an increase, giving you that raise. But that would be kind of the kind of formality I would do in setting it up. If you're lucky enough, a face-to-face over a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it might be is kind of nice. But if it's not, then a Zoom or a Teams meetup kind of call as well.
Yeah, oh, good point. Yeah. And what if the boss, for example, answers, yeah, I have to be fair for everybody. Your teammates also won't get a raise. So how do I answer these, or how do I handle these excuses?
So I would say first thing is that procedures do need to be fair. However, salaries do differ dependent on every person. So what it would differ on is like your experience or like what you particularly bring to the team. So you can ask, what are the procedures and structures in place for, being fair and equal, and then how one could motivate within those bounds for the increase. So I would say, even if they say that, like, don't take it as a blatant no. It's rather that you can have a further conversation, understanding really how do they evaluate fair and equal within the team. And then it's also, you can dive into things like, does everyone get annual raises? What is the company's policy on annual raises? What's the kind of percentage you can expect? What's it measured on? What are your KPIs? And kind of having a conversation from there.
Mm-hmm. Good. Helena has a follow-up question to her previous question about the difficult situation of the companies. So, so if a company is using that as an excuse, how would you suggest handling this gracefully?
So I think then it's going to come to a point of, if you don't get the increase that you're looking for, is it a deal breaker for you at this point in time? So that would be a conversation you would have to have with yourself to figure out. If a company blatantly says they do not have the financial resources and they can't compensate for it in a different way, then if you are comfortable with it and it is a deal breaker, then mentioning to them, due to this though, it does have an impact on your life, your well-being, you are going to be looking elsewhere, just entering the job market. It's a hard conversation to have, but I think being honest and open about that and knowing it's nothing negative to them, but it's financial position that's important, going forward, that's kind of how I probably would handle that in that scenario.
Yeah, okay. Good tip. I'm sure Helena appreciates your tip in that situation. If we go back to if we are not currently employed and we are not asking for a raise, but we are applying for a new job. So what kind of questions can we ask to determine the available range for a position that we are applying for?
Okay, so I would say here, it depends if you want to be subtle about it or not. usually I would say is be upfront. You want to know. You don't want to spend your time and the company's time just to the end to understand that you both are 100% misaligned in terms of what you're looking for and what they're looking for, or what they have available. So what I would say is you can kind of ask it like, if this would to get to offer stage, like what kind of salary package could be on offer? What is the benefit structure that the company offers? And what is kind of growth opportunities look like? So you can always put it like in the hypothetical of if we were to get to offer stage. And also, I would say if salary is a deal breaker for you, if it's really important for what you're looking for, then being upfront about it. So being like, what is the kind of budget for this role? And a lot of companies, I think we have this perception that talking about salary is taboo, but it's not. Like they're aware of it. They know their budget. They set it out on an annual basis of like recruitment and hiring budgets. So being upfront and asking them, and if from there it's something within the range you're looking for, then great, proceed if you're keen. And if not, then you can gracefully just be like, thank you so much, but this is unfortunately below what I'm looking for, kind of having that conversation.
Yeah. And sometimes in job descriptions, there is a salary range specified. So does it mean that there's no room to negotiate, or is there still?
Definitely not. So there's definitely still room to negotiate. It really can depend. So those job specs, I want to give credit to companies, but sometimes they are a bit more stock standard. Would like say like 5 years of experience in this, but they're happy to take someone with 3 years of experience who has a growth mindset, and willing to learn and willing to upskill. So there's always room to negotiate, even if there is a specific, range listed. It would depend on your technical competencies, the kind of benefit structure that the company perhaps has to offer, the growth potential, all of that. I would say in that regard, like, it's also a question you can ask the company. It's like, I have seen you listed this. How much room do you guys have to play with? Like, is it 5,000 euros per annum? Like, how far is it to see from that? But a lot of the times, like, as much as a company has a range, they can motivate for higher if, you've been able to show in the interview process that you're worth more, if you can put it as such.
Yeah. We have another question coming in from EL. How do you negotiate when you haven't gotten a better job offer, or you might want to consider staying at your current company?
Okay, so that's a good one. The second one, if you're like considering staying at your current company, it's one of the ones we try advise against, but it's basically called a counteroffer situation, where you go into the market just to be able to tell your current company, hey, I did actually get an offer higher. If you guys don't give me the salary I'm looking for, I will leave. It's not ideal. I mean, sometimes it can work, but more often than not, I've seen people do that and take the counter offer, and 3 months down the line, the reasons they were initially looking to leave, they're kind of back in the market for those same reasons. So I would say if you have gotten like a better offer and you want to stay at your current company, and the factors that initially made you enter the job market are solved by the counteroffer, not just the monetary amount, or unless the monetary amount was the reason you entered. If they are solved, then have that conversation with your company and be like, you can also, once again, schedule a meeting, be like, I have just gotten an offer. And then they might be a little shocked that you're in the market if you didn't tell them, but you can talk about that and you can raise your concerns with them, and then kind of take it from there. And if you're happy, then they're able to address your concerns. I would also say get it in writing. If your current company is saying that, yes, we'll address these concerns, or yes, we'll increase your salary, make sure you do get it in writing before, say, declining another offer just to stay. Yeah, that would be kind of my thing. But I would also say, like, before you even enter the job market, rather address your concerns with your current employer. It's a lot of time for interviewing, both on your side and other companies. So rather really make sure that when you are entering it, there's nothing your current company could do to keep you.
Yeah, very, very good point, I think. And another question came in. What are your recommendations to handle companies that ask for your salary expectations? So I think we briefly touched on that, but maybe you can just repeat your tips.
So interesting enough, OfferZen, when you use it, asks for your current salary expectation as an upfront amount, and we opted for that to increase the transparency in the interview process. So I would say if a company is asking for your current salary expectations, if you don't have a clear picture in mind, that's going to make it more difficult. So try and do obviously as much research as possible for what you are looking for. But if you have an amount in mind, be honest with them. So tell them what you're looking for. What you can always do is accompany it with a motivation. So instead of just saying, I'm looking for, say, 60,000 euros per annum, and that's it. Rather say, I'm looking for this because of these kind of factors. That can also help. And then a company can give you feedback. Okay, we don't have this budget, or we do, but it depends on this. That's kind of a further like deep dive that you can do into it. If you are very uncomfortable and rather want to see what they have to offer, then you can kind of just like, I'm negotiable on it. So let's see out the interview process. But then you really actually do need to be negotiable when it comes to final offer stage. But yeah, I would say go for it. Tell them what you're looking for. Let them know why, and then take it from there.
Yeah, yeah. And in addition to that, I just want to repeat what you said before. There are many other benefits that a company can offer you except money. So I think that's what we shouldn't forget. You know, like there are like commute expenses, lunches. I don't know, like a health, like sometimes here in the Netherlands they offer to cover your health insurance or gym memberships. So there are a lot of things that can save you some money per month as well. So yeah. Let me see. Wow, so many questions are coming in. Thanks, everybody. Amazing. And people also say thank you to Stephanie. Amazing talk.
Yes, give me some good questions here.
Yes, no, definitely. And guys, keep your questions coming. We're still here, and we're here to answer all of your questions. So there is another one from Sabrina. She's saying, what if you've taken on an expanded role with additional team members, but no talks initiated on salary bump? Should you talk to HR to get more specifics on role budget before going to your manager?
That's very cool. So I would probably, so that's kind of what would count as a promotion. If the company hasn't addressed a salary raise with that, I would say, depending on your relationship with your manager, probably speaking to them directly more often than not, or depends on how the organization is structured in this, but more often than not, your manager would have insight into what the budget is or the salary is for your role. So unless you're not comfortable for that, you can go then first to HR, finding out if they are able to disclose it to you. But I think it is a good thing to know, you're taking on this additional responsibility. It is a promotion, it's more work. So in that essence, you should be compensated for it as well. So I would say first manager, if you're comfortable with it, and finding out from them, like, and mapping it out. Okay, these are the additional responsibilities that I'm now taking on. How can we equate that to a raise? Like, what does that measure up for them in terms of like value brought into the company? So once again, linking it to data points instead of just saying I'm taking on more responsibilities, I should get more money, but having why. Yeah, I hope that helps, Sabrina.
Yeah. Very good point. Another question came in on YouTube. What do you do if they ask you for your current salary, but the salary you want is a lot higher because your salary was way too low?
Okay, so this is actually something I experience quite regularly, is people that are earning below what is market related. And it's a tough one because there are some companies that have internal policy restrictions on increases that they can offer. So, for example, I'm not so familiar with the Netherlands market, but in South Africa, most companies are happy with a 10 to 15% raise in like monthly salary. But oftentimes, if you are under market related and looking, you're going at like a 30, 40% increase, which might look like crazy, but you're not even going like above market for what you're expecting. So in that scenario, I would say, like, explain it. So showcase to them like you're aware of what you're currently earning, but you also do acknowledge that it is below what is market. And you want to kind of get out of that cycle and showcasing that you're not earning that below market because you're not technically sound, but rather it's kind of been a factor of, always being willing to take a lower salary, or, you started at a really small company with your career. So I think addressing it, like address the elephant in the room, address that you're being underpaid and you're wanting to get to a market related amount, and then showcasing, okay, but I absolutely smashed your tech assessment or your case study interview and you were really happy with it. I believe I can bring this value to the company, and having that kind of conversation from there. But I think being open and honest about it instead of trying to shy away from the conversation, it's a tough one, but being able to acknowledge I am underpaid and I want to get out of that. And I believe my value is equated to the salary I'm looking for. You really, as long as the company is also able to be flexible about that and motivate to whoever they need to motivate to kind of get across that increased barrier.
Yeah, no, good point. But also, like, I know from being German, like in Germany, it's not even allowed to ask for your current salary. So if you're going to a job interview and they ask you, what are you earning right now? You don't have to answer that. You can say, like, this is part of my contract and it's confidential. So also keep that in mind. You don't need to answer that in any job interviews. Okay, I'm just looking at the questions here and I don't see any further questions. So I think we are very good in time. That is amazing, and people are still watching us. So thanks everybody for that. If there are no further questions, I give you one last minute. Then we would wrap up. And yeah, I would like to thank you so much, Steph, for taking the time tonight to share your expertise. I think it was really, really valuable. Your tips are amazing. So everybody, I hope you all get your raise beginning of next year. Or if you still have your end of year reviews this year, think about the tips that Steph gave you and thank us later. That's okay. Thanks everybody for joining us. Our next She-Shop event will be on the 22nd of January, and we have something very special for you created, which is going to be a mini conference. So a whole afternoon, we have 2 tracks with 4 sessions each, and already 15 speakers confirmed. So make sure that you stay tuned for the announcement that will go out very soon. And I see many comments coming in here. Amazing talk. Thank you. Good luck, everyone. Yeah, that's a very good point. We agree.
Can I just interrupt you there, Sina? Like, if anyone does want to chat, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Happy to DM you guys to chat around things if you do want, or even reach out to OfferZen. We're definitely happy to advise where we can.
Perfect. No, thanks a lot. So you guys know how to reach Steph, and she is available for any other comments or questions you might have. With that, I wish to thank you all, and until we see each other next time again. Thank you. Bye.